So tonight, the subject is just talking about roles within the worship team, and it's going to be a bit different. I'm not going to do kind of the normal thing. I suppose, as an example, I got on the net and did some surfing and looked at lots of different churches, especially in America, so many of them. And this was a worship handbook for a church in Georgia or something, and it's just massive. It's just got everything you could ever want to know and every sort of thing you have to do, and it's got contracts up the back you sign, evaluation surveys and all this sort of stuff, and personal evaluation sheets and all this sort of stuff, you know, expectations and all that. And while in my quick flick through it, I didn't disagree with any of it, I just don't feel that that's where we want to be as a church. Like there's nothing wrong, particularly with rules and with selection criteria and procedures and processes, but anyone can get around rules. You know, like you can obey the 10 Commandments and not care about anybody. And, you know, you can have a whole bunch of rules that you follow, but, you know, there's more to things than just the rules. And so, while I'm all for being organised and all that sort of stuff, I've really resisted doing things like that with the music here at Eternity, because I think it's not Mark's style, particularly. And I think that, you know, focusing on rules and puts pressure. So some things I listed that I don't want to do is have a big document like that. I don't want to police that. You know, I don't want to go around, you know, you didn't sit down in your bedroom and worship God privately twice this week, so you'll need to have 4 weeks off, apparently then another 2 weeks and an evaluation and and all this sort of stuff. And these things happen. I have been pulled into, you know, pastors' offices for not raising my hands in worship on Sundays at churches. You know, I've been in trouble for things like that. And that's when you get really way off the whole point. You know, and, you know, while I think, you know, appearances mean something, they don't mean everything, and that's not the kind of disciples that we're trying to grow here. And I just don't dig that, you know. I don't want to see a hierarchical style of leadership. And I don't think Mark wants to be that kind of senior minister. He doesn't want to be the general at the top, having his hand in everything, because that limits what can happen. I think it's more like where you know the objective, and so you're out there on mission. If it's a soldier analogy, you're out there and you're adapting with the environment, and as things change and situations develop, you know the mind of the leader and you're going for it. And I think as Christians, really that's the kind of relationship we should be having with God. That every day, all the time, if we're willing to have a chat with God all the time, because He's interested in little things, surprisingly, it's like, God, what should I do today? And should I speak to that person? And God, how do I forgive that person? Or how do I respond to that email or that thing that sort of upset me or whatever? And you're constantly bouncing things up and back to God and saying, you know, what should I do? No, I'm unhappy with how I reacted last time, or I don't feel comfortable about that. I'd rather be like this. And, you know, how do you counsel me, God? And that kind of relationship with God is discipleship. While we are under, you know, say a leader in a church or whatever, we're not disciples of Mark. We're not disciples of Eternity. We're disciples of Jesus. We go direct. Of course, we submit to people just like we submit to authority, to you know, road rules, to whatever. But at the end of the day, we talk to God and we hear from Him ourselves, and that actually creates a much better person. Okay, so you can get around rules. And the other thing, if I said to you, okay, musos, you have to practice at least once a week, or you have to get lessons as a singer, or whatever it is, that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But you kind of settle images. So people go, I practice once a week, and it's like, well, you don't have to do it once. You could be practicing every day. You could go to, you know, a music conservatorium. You could, you know, don't let me limit your potential. And in some ways, by saying, what do you think you should do? It's actually much harder. Like when God writes the law on our hearts, in a way it's much stricter than any list of commandments or great big document that you could write up, because because God's sensitive to our hearts, and He keeps poking and prodding, and and He'll come back to us. No, God, I'm not surrendering that to you. Or no, I'm fine with what I said or did. And He'll go, okay, cool. And He'll come back next week and go, sure. You're like, yeah. And so I think that's just part of discipleship, and I don't see why it should be any different in music ministry, in worshiping God. And so, yeah. And sometimes I think rules and lots of restrictive rules are imposed because in the past it's been loose and there's been no control, so it's a way of, oh my gosh, we've got to get things under control. Sometimes it's insecurity of leaders, so they need to have their hands on everything. But morals and moral skill, the ability to discern what's right and wrong, is eroded by relying on rules too much. And you can see that from financial crises. Bankers can have rules, but they can get around those rules and, destroy whole economies. And there's always ways around it. And so it's more about developing the person inside to make the right decision. I think sometimes if I say, right, we've got rules about you must do this, and you must do this, you must do this to be a singer or something, then that's fine, but it only ever creates mediocrity. Whereas we want to see people who are just amazing. People like Fiona, who just lives and breathes music. You can never limit and say, oh, you have to practice every day. She'd go, oh, I do that already. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, because that's something they're passionate about, and they're, and that's something that, is, oh, fantastic. Let's not limit that by my set of rules or some sort of formula for the average or for the, for whatever. So yeah, some examples I think is when Jesus was going around doing things, and he went out and he healed a man who had a withered hand on the Sabbath. Okay, and the leaders of the Lord thinking, oh my gosh, you healed someone on the Sabbath, this is disgusting. And he's just going, wow, God invented your day off to give you a break because He knows how hard you're going to work and what life's like. And He said, no. One day off a week, relax, hang out with me, particularly spend time with your family, celebrate life, and just don't do any work. But you, religious people of the day, go around policing it. And so you follow people and you chase them and you pester them and you persecute them. And, if a man drags a chair over here and sits on it, he's done work because he's ploughed the ground. But if he picks it up and moves it over here, that's fine. And Jesus has just said, you've taken God's day off, His gift to mankind, and you've wrecked it. You've stuffed the day off. You've wrecked it. You've made it this big thing where you're running around giving everyone a hard time on the day off. And so everyone's tense about their day off. I don't want to accidentally work on my day off. It's like, really? Come on. And so I think that's an example of where rules have become more important than people. Like a traffic light doesn't exist. I wasn't born so that the traffic light would tell me go, stop, or prepare to stop. It was made to protect me. The rules, the lines on the road, the traffic lights exist to protect us. Yeah. We don't exist to give them something to do. You know what I mean? And that's where it's at. And sometimes I think people forget the purpose. The purpose is about people, and especially in church. Like, we're in the people business, or you can take to heaven with you as people. And so that's what we want to do, and that's what we're all about. So with what we've done already in the music, I've set or been really sort of into guidelines and not rules. And maybe that's a bit, sometimes people get a bit uncertain, but I've said, hey, as a guideline, if you can't sing this song in the key it's written, don't sing it. Pick another song. But if you really feel that, no, I really want to do that song, I really feel God's telling me that would be fantastic, and you've got something, yeah, I'm really feeling it, I really want to do that one, then get it in a different key, that's fine. But we just don't want to end up with 20 different versions of the same song. Which one have I got today? But it's just a guideline. If God tells you to do it, I'm not going to tell you not to. Yeah. That's fine. And playing too much, I don't want to see people explode from, every week they're up there playing or singing. And so a guideline is, hey, don't overdo it. But some people actually get energised by playing. And so I'm not going to say, I'll say, hey, are you doing okay? You're not too busy? No, I'm fine. You sure? Cool, go for it. Two things just this week that I heard which really impressed me because people were into bending the rules, or the guidelines or whatever. And so Jake's drummer Matt has just got his timetable back for uni apparently, and there's a clash with Thursday night, right? So he's got classes till, I don't know, 7:30 or something. And so I thought, gee, because they just loved playing together, great band. And so apparently Jake's trying to organise practices from 8:30 till 9:30 on Thursday. Now, as a guideline, I would say, hey, don't stay out too late. You've got work tomorrow or school tomorrow. Let's not sort of suck everyone's time because people have families and other commitments. But what a fantastic initiative that they're passionate about it. I'm not going to tell them no. Why would I get in there and ruin some guys who are just taking some initiative? Chris V was talking to me about an idea, between our 2 services on Sunday morning, we could have just worship keep going right through. And just half an hour of worship and then straight into the next service. And I said, man, I think that's an interesting idea. And I said, I'm not poo-pooing it, but I would just keep in mind where Mark's heart is. The coffee breaks are there so people can connect, and we've got that sort of happening. And I said, to be honest, I'm surprised it hasn't happened, because Mark can be very much like that. He'll just be in the zone and say, guys, if you need to go, we're just going to stay here and worship God. I'm sure it will happen. But I said, man, just consider these things about why Mark has set up the services the way they are. But man, go for it. Why not? I mean, as a guideline, I wouldn't do it every week, but hey, if God's going to tell you to do something, I'm not going to stand between you and God. That's crazy. And so, I think guidelines help us, but God challenges us. So, I think it's all about understanding the purpose of what we're here and what we're all about, and getting kind of beyond the rules. And I think as a church in the last 2 years, we've transitioned out of a hierarchical sort of leadership system into something that's about releasing people inside a broad vision, which we'll talk about after we watch this little video.